up, everyone? Happy Wednesday. I'm Faith Suggs, and welcome to the Huddle. Every Wednesday, we leave our regular lives to enter this huddle, a space known for challenging yourself and navigating the adversity life throws at us. Stories are built within this huddle, and every Friday morning at 10:04 a.m. Eastern, we'll bring someone new to share their story and push through topics that encourage us all to grow. A little bit about me, your host of The Huddle, but also co-host of Faith Family Focus. I'm a former Duke women's basketball graduate and CEO and founder of Brand by Faith, a social media and branding company dedicated to telling the story of our clients. And I also work with student athletes on name, image, likeness, which we will touch on every Friday while we're here in The Huddle. The Huddle is presented by Faith Family Focus, like I said before, co-hosted by myself and my father, Faith Suggs, former NFL player with the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals. You can catch us live Monday and Wednesdays now, 9:04 a.m. Central, 10:04 a.m. Eastern. Like I said before, the Huddle is every Friday, but this Friday, we're not doing it. We moved it up Wednesday for our schedule. So following next week and continuing on, we'll be here on E360 TV, Facebook, Apple TV, Roku, everything you can see on our platforms will be on Friday mornings. In this morning's first ever episode of The Huddle, we'll introduce a new guest I had the pleasure of meeting this summer with a great light, Nicole Moss. For those of you that follow sports media, this name isn't new to you, as Ashley knows her stuff. Just ask her about her Knicks and listen to her go. As an analyst and a podcaster and a TV host, she proves time and time again that her knowledge of sports is like that, and her New York personality is just a bonus. Born and raised in New York, Ashley Nicole Moss is a graduate of Florida Atlantic University. And early this month, Ashley announced she accepted a full-time position with Sports Illustrated to become the host of their digital platform. This makes Ashley the first ever Black woman and woman of color to hold this position. And currently, Ashley is the host and co-creator of Sports Illustrated's newest show, Laces Out. And we'll get to show that for you guys in a quick second. If you haven't checked out Laces Out, I want to say they've just finished wrapping, but they should be posts and
with Squarespace, editing and adding pieces on my e-commerce site is quick and easy.
Let's get that open for you guys. And after this quick bit, we'll give you guys some information on when Ashley's coming on and more.
What's up, everybody? I'm Ashley Nicole Moss. This is Jarrell Harris, and this is the very first episode of Laces Out. Gotta clap it up, clap it up, clap it up. Are you excited?
I'm excited to be here. I see you got the TLC. What about your friends? What's going on?
Don't clown my gloves, man. This is fashion. This is fashion at its finest. But I'm not the only one that we're going to discuss my fashion. I got to hang out with wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers, Robbie Anderson, in Florida. We got to tour his closet. We got to talk some football. But you and I are going to talk about some things, too, because we're going to talk about LeBron.
That's just a quick thing. So without further ado, after this quick commercial, we'll have Ashley on and she'll tell us all about Laces Out, Sports Illustrated, and her story. What up, Ash? Good morning.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. I was saying before the show how great you look in that orange.
Oh, well, this is workout gear. So for everyone who works from home, at least for the time being, they know that you're not wearing like real clothing. So this is as close as it's going to get over here. Yeah.
Normal. Yeah, we all have sweatpants on. But
exactly.
Where are you? What are you up to right now today?
So right now I'm in Miami. So Miami has been my home for a few years since I left New York to go to college. And we wrapped on production for Laces Out season 1, which was a great season. The show will actually go until the second week of October. We're done filming, so I get to stay in Miami for a little bit before I gotta start moving around again. So right now we're working on a lot of new series that are going to be coming out of SI, a lot of really cool things I'm excited about. And, in between that, there's some other things in the works with some other companies that, should be dropping sometime this month that I'm pretty excited about as well. So it's a very busy time, but it's good to be busy, and idle time is not good time. So I'm glad to have my hands full with a bunch of different things for sure.
Yeah. No, that's super exciting. So one question I feel like asking all of our guests whenever they join us, and this kind of goes hand in hand with Laces Out. What's on your feet today? What are we planning on wearing? And what are our favorite picks of the week?
So nothing crazy. I have slippers on, like those UGG like slippers with the like sling back and the thing with the furry ones. Those are probably like my go-to shoe when I'm home. I'm not one of those people who can like go barefoot at the house. It's weird to me. And like I have to always have socks on. Even with socks, I like the sock slide combination. I can't like do the whole just socks on. I don't know. I'm just really weird like that. I need to have something on my feet. It just throws me off if I don't. So that is definitely what I wear probably a lot of the time. If I don't leave the house for work, I'm in slippers. So that's what I'm doing. I got nothing special going on over here.
Yeah, some people don't wear slippers around their house.
Yeah, which I don't get it. Like I understand, like I have slippers, like I won't wear slides that are for the outdoors in the house. Like I am germaphobe like that. Like don't bring germs from outside into my house. But I have house slippers that like I only wear in the house, and I'm just like people walk around their house barefoot. It's weird. I don't get it. I can't do it. It just my feet get cold, and I don't know, it throws me off my day. Can't do it.
No, we're the same way here. Shane can't handle like not wearing slippers.
Yeah.
He put me on slippers. I was a big socks person, and then I moved here. I'm slippers all the time. So, quick question for those of you who are getting to know you: what borough do you rep? New York.
Listen, it's BK all day over here, but I do have mad love for Queens. I lived in Forest Hills for a little bit. My dad is from Hollis, so he reps Queens. My mom was born and raised in Brooklyn. So I was born in Brooklyn, lived in Brooklyn, then also lived in Queens. So it's a split down the middle for love, but because Brooklyn technically is where, I was born, and that's the hospital I come from, Brookdale Hospital. Shout out to that ghetto mess of a hospital. It's a little bit closer to my heart than Queens is, but Queens, I have mad love for Queens too. It was good to me as well.
Yeah. Well, a question for some people, because they think Brooklyn's all the same. Is there multiple Brooklyns?
Oh, for sure. There's gentrified Brooklyn. There's real Brooklyn. There's parts of Brooklyn that if you're from Brooklyn, you don't even want to go to. There's different pockets of Brooklyn. Like it's not Brooklyn, all Brooklyn is not created equal. I think people think, because like it's safe to go to Williamsburg, South Williamsburg in some parts, that like that's all of Brooklyn. No, you don't want to go to Canarsie. You don't want to go to East New York. You don't want to go to Red Hook. Like I have the Brooklyn birth certificate, and I don't even want to go to Canarsie. Like it's just those places. Don't test your luck. Stay in Dumbo. Stay in Williamsburg. Stay in the places where like they got like $15 bagels. Don't try to venture outside of that if you're not from there, because you will find yourself in a situation.
You'll start to see like the 7-Elevens and the bodegas start to look real different.
And then you're not in Williamsburg no more. So.
Yes, because I was in Fort Greene, Brooklyn Heights for the last 2 years, and so I was very spoiled with where I was for sure.
That's big money over there for sure.
Yeah. So I was living there free. I love Brooklyn. Brooklyn is so amazing, so amazing. So tell me a little bit about how Brooklyn and how you were raised and where you were raised kind of creeps into your personality and kind of who you are when you step in front of the camera.
So I think it's so funny because my mom was actually telling me this yesterday that one of our doctors was like, she's so quiet. Like, how does she do what she does? I think people, my everyday life, I'm very I'm very reserved and very chill. Like, I don't need to be the loudest. I don't need to be the center of attention. And then when I'm on camera, it's like a complete personality shift. So I think, that's a big part of it. And then also I think just being from New York, you automatically grow up a little bit quicker than I think a lot of other kids in the country do, because it's just such a quick city. And I think also when you come from New York and you have parents who are born and raised in New York, you have that just hustler mentality, right? Like, you know how to make money, you know how to flip money, you have grind, you have determination. And granted, there are people who don't fit into that category that are from New York. I'm not saying that's everyone, but I'm saying for the most part, that's kind of bred in your DNA, just growing up in that city, growing up in that environment. It's the city that never sleeps. It's the city that people come to when they want to become something, when they want to become someone. And being around that energy and that hustle and bustle, that's just constant. And I think that's why people who don't come from there, they find it so overwhelming sometimes. It's like, why is everybody in a rush? Why is everybody so mean? Why is everybody so aggressive? It's just because people are just very like one track mind. I got something to do. I got somewhere I have to be. And I think that's what I apply to my career. I have tunnel vision. I'm not really focused on what the next reporter is doing or who got what job or who's doing what interview. I'm focused on everything that I have going on. So I just see everything like this. And I think that really comes from just growing up in an environment where you had to have that kind of mentality.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand. New York kids are different in the sense that they really are extremely independent. I've never seen anything like it until I had moved there 2 years ago. And you see that, they get up, they take the train. And if anybody is new to New York, they know the train can be extremely confusing when you have to hop from one to the other. And they take the train early in the morning, they hop off, get on another train, go to school, come home, then they go get their bodega, they go do this, they do that. They have their little routines. By the time their parents get home, they've already had like a whole day. And so that's why it's funny you say that, because it is an extremely independent, grind, hustle mentality that just kind of flows throughout the city. It's interesting because we've been talking about it on my other show, Faith, Family, Focus, a little bit about how that grind and hustle and blue collar mentality is like slipping a little bit away from society, and we're going towards more of the live for your moment, live your life. Life is short, because after COVID or during COVID, we've been seeing a lot of people lose loved ones, lose jobs. So we're all trying to embrace the beauty of life, and we're losing a little bit of that grind and hustle that the country was built on. And it's interesting you said that, because New York definitely still has that grind and hustle. I don't think it'll ever lose.
I mean, I think also because I think everybody, we came up in a different time, right? I know we're not the oldest, but we're also not the youngest. So I think growing up in a time where social media really wasn't a thing, we didn't really have cell phones, like the type of phones we have now. Like, we had Nokias and like flip phones and things that really kind of limited the amount of things that you can do on your phone. It was strictly just to call, and texting was a pain in the ass. Like, you had to like do the short text, and it was like, every single text took like 15 minutes to write out. It wasn't these quick, just off the spurt, just kind of communication. So I think people now, I feel like a lot of young people now, a lot of people younger than us, try to do cheat codes, right? They try to find the short path to hard work and the result of hard work. And I think it works for some people. Let's call it what it is. There are people who just go on TikTok and become viral sensations, and all of a sudden now they're at the Met Gala and they're doing this and they're doing that. But that's such a small percentage. And I think that because it's so in your face, people think that that is across the board. Like, okay, it worked for this person, it's going to work for me. It doesn't work like that. It's the same thing with the NBA. Not everybody goes to the NBA. There's a very small percentage, and there's a very small percentage of people who can cheat hard work and kind of just fall into success. Not everybody has that blessing.
Word. Yeah. So just a little bit about little Ashley, young Ashley from Brooklyn. Talk to us a little bit about your story, your family, and so people can kind of get a background of who you are and where you came from.
So my family is everything to me. Like, they're like my foundation. Anyone who knows me knows I'm very, very close to my family. And as a kid, I was even closer because I wasn't the most outspoken and friendly. I was very confident in the things that I knew and the things that I could do. I didn't like hearing the word no when I was a kid, but I also wasn't the most outgoing and extrovert. Like, I didn't have the most friends as a young kid. Even as I got older, there was a lot growing up in a neighborhood that was predominantly Black and coming from mixed parents. That also kind of made things a little bit harder for me, because this was in an era where mixed kids weren't really as prominent in your face, right? Curly hair wasn't something you saw a lot. There weren't even a lot of products for curly hair come when I was a young kid. So I was kind of like this weird, like, is she Black? Is she not Black? Like, what, it was this weird thing. So that also caused a lot of like animosity from certain people that I would go to school with. So it made me really toughen up and made me kind of put up this wall and this shell, maybe a little bit younger than I would have wanted to, just because it's like defense mode, right? Like if I'm tough, then everything that's going on around me can't really bother me. But at home is where I felt my safest. I could let the guard down, I could be silly, I could be goofy. So that is kind of still to this day. I think, being in the public field and being in that public persona, you have to kind of still have that guard up, because it's a very shady business sometimes. And then also people want to attach themselves to you because of who you hang out with. When I'm home, I don't have to worry about any of that, which is why I so value just being home, being in my space, being around my friends, people who've known me since I was young, and just really relishing and keeping that so separate. If you look at my social media, I rarely have pictures of my family or like my day one friends. It's very sporadic, and I do that because I keep that so close to me for that very reason, because that's like my sanctuary, and I just don't want it like infiltrated by like the outside world.
Yeah, and that's beautiful, because what people don't realize is that keeps you grounded and rooted, and also reminds you of who you are. Because a lot of times as we evolve and become, older, we change who we are for the better. But it's also beautiful when you can see who you were and add that to who you're becoming.
Yeah.
A little compliment for one another. So your mom's Italian.
Yes.
Would you say you get more the wow-ness to you from your mother or your dad?
Oh, for sure. My mom is spicy. Like, she is a Sicilian from Brooklyn, New York. So she has attitude. She is quick with the clapbacks. She is fierce. She is protective. She is loyal. So I think all of that like edge that I have definitely comes from her. My dad is a true Gemini. Sometimes he's calm, sometimes he's not, but he's very like mellow most of the time. Very like in his own like space. If he doesn't know you, he's not the most friendly. Sometimes my mom is definitely the firecracker. So all of the feistiness and the spice in my personality 100% comes from her. My dad is a polar opposite. Yeah.
What would you say that motivated you the most that you gained from them? Whether it's advice, whether it's just watching them grind, what was it that kind of flowed through you genetically that you feel like works with you on a daily?
Definitely watching them grind. Like, my parents came from nothing. You know what I mean? My parents, weren't wealthy. My parents weren't even rich. My parents were broke as kids. Like, they grew up in the projects. So even when we were, when I came into the picture, and, they were kind of figuring and navigating how to be parents. My parents were not young parents, but they weren't old parents. They were in their late 20s. So not having much, we lived in small apartments. We didn't live in massive houses and stuff. It wasn't until much later in my life that we started to live in houses. So it was watching them kind of do that, and even living in houses, going from one house, and then the next house is even bigger than the last, and then that was even bigger than the last. So watching them kind of grind together, everything that my parents have, created and accumulated is just off of the grind of them as people together, as a couple. And watching that was really definitely inspiring, and it's definitely something that I've applied to my life individually. Like I said, I'm a hustler, I'm a grinder, because I've been around it, I've witnessed it. But then also, like, looking forward, when you start thinking about like marriage and babies and partnerships, I think for me, I look for that quality in a person that I'm dating. And if I'm not dating a person, or if a relationship doesn't work out, it's probably because of amongst a list of other things, that quality of, is this somebody I can build with and be better than we are right now? Down the line, can we be better than this moment in time? I don't see that possibility there. And I've definitely gotten that from watching them, for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like young women especially have been extremely more cutthroat in how they decide to date and who they date. And, the list of things we accept gets shorter and shorter as time goes on, because you're starting to see careers evolve and women starting to learn more about independence and the power of independence behind it. How important do you think it is to have a partner that is supportive, like you were just talking about, but especially when we talk about multimedia journalism?
Extremely supportive. I mean, even as a woman in a predominantly male dominated field, right?
Right.
You have to have a partner who is secure enough to know, look, I may have to go and sit down with the biggest and brightest NBA stars, and those guys make a lot of money. You know what I mean? So it's having the confidence and like trusting not only your partner, whether it's me or anybody, but knowing that like, okay, this may not be the most comfortable situation, but I'm gonna slug it out. It's gonna be good because I trust this relationship and I trust this person that I'm with. And I say that when picking a partner, I think it's also important to pick somebody who has the qualities and also is somewhat of the same playing field. And I say that because if you are a woman who doesn't have a job, doesn't have a college degree, doesn't do anything, you're really not ambitious, you're not going saying that your criteria is, oh, he has to be a millionaire, that's unbalanced. You know what I mean? Because he's a millionaire and he's doing X, Y, and Z, and you don't have a college degree, you don't have a job, you don't have any ambitions, you don't have any dreams, you don't have anything that you're working towards. It's a very unbalanced situation. Now, that's not to say that if you're a millionaire, as if the guy's a millionaire, you have to be a millionaire, but you should have something that you can bring to the table that's somewhat on that playing field. You're educated, right? You have your own money. It may not be millions, but you have your own money and you're working towards something. You have dreams, you have ambitions. My tip always to women when trying to like date is stop trying to catch a big fish when you're trying to catch it from a little pond. Be in the big pond, still try to catch a big fish, but at least have something that you can say, look, I may not be here, but I'm here. And when it comes to what I bring to the table outside of finances, I'm here with you. It's finding a level of equalness that's outside of your money, but it has to be somewhat equal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you want to be able to challenge the normal society, but you want to be able to have a partner that can support you, not just financially, where you guys have the same kind of mentality, but also just in the grind and the hustle of understanding the ways of life. And that's my biggest thing is like when you pick somebody, you hit it right on the head, because sometimes we always have this discussion, especially within our generation, is that, women, they don't want to date men who don't have a lot of money. And that's out of this world, insane. Why can't we? But here's the thing, it's much deeper than men, women, this, that, right? It's very much along the lines of, can you agree on things? Do you have issues when it comes to financials? Because all that stuff comes up as soon as you sign that dotted line and add marriage to the title. A little bit switch over to, let's talk about multimedia journalism. That's what your degree was at FAU. So I read somewhere that you kind of started with TV a little bit, stuff like that. What about journalism, being in front of TV? How did that kind of spark interest in you?
So when I was a kid, my mom kind of put me in like acting. So I did like commercial auditions and movie auditions and stuff. And it was an outlet because I was so reserved. But when the camera got on, I was a different person. That requires a lot of dedication. And when you're so young and you're being dragged to audition, when you just want to go to birthday parties and play sports, it's sometimes it requires a certain type of person. And when I was that kid, I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to be a kid. So I fell in love with sports. I did volleyball, I did soccer, basketball, all these sports. And watching sports was a way for my dad and I to bond. In the beginning, I didn't really understand what I was looking at. I enjoyed the theatrics of it, the athleticism of it. As I got older and I really started to get into the logistics of it and, the things behind the scenes in terms of trades and things like that, I really started to find a newfound love for it, because now I'm watching something that I fully understand and I can fully just evolve with teaching myself, with my dad teaching me. So when it came to around high school, I used to get into debates with the guys all the time about sports and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm actually really good at this. Like, I really enjoy having these conversations. And on top of that, I loved telling stories. I loved writing. I loved examining not only people, but just telling stories about things. So when I got to college, it was a real easy transition for me. I knew I wanted to go into sports. And then journalism was the aspect of being able to not only debate and do that fun stuff, but for me, I got into it really because I wanted to tell stories of these athletes who we see do these amazing things. And we get so caught up in the wins and the losses and the rankings and, the contracts that we forget that these guys are people. Before they were athletes that were seen on the biggest stage, they were people growing up in whatever town that they're from, and they have dreams and they have aspirations and they have things that they do outside of the sport. And I wanted to be part of telling those stories and not just so focusing on, what happens in the game, but what happens outside of it.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things and reasons why I wanted to start this show and we have another show, we dive into stories. Because stories is, at the end of the day, all we have in life. And we leave with stories. But we leave our footprint, everything on people's lives. And a lot of the time when I was playing at Duke, you could see in my head as I got older and I evolved and I grew, as I started to understand the value of my story more than, how I was playing or this or that. It was how I made people feel or what I contributed, and all this type of stuff kind of rolled in. And I started understanding, stories are so beautiful. It's who we are. It's where we come from. It's our families, it's our loved ones. And it all kind of comes together when you meet somebody and they get to peel back those onion layers and get to know who you are. That's the beauty. And I think it's the beauty of journalism. I'm so glad that you get to tap on that. And I really enjoy watching Laces Out in the sense that it's about this and about that, but you also kind of figure out who these guys are, which for a lot of people is not something they really think of when they watch them on the TV Monday nights, Sunday nights, or whenever NBA season starts, right? And especially with football players, because football players are I was raised by one, and they have such strong personality, strong person. And then you meet the ones that are sometimes like very calm and reserved, and you're like, how can you not have that football-esque to them? And those are the ones that have gems in their lives, and you hear the stories, and sometimes they have strong moms and strong dads, and it's really beautiful stories that you get to share.
Yeah, and I mean, also remember, basketball is a little bit different because you can see the guys, right? So you can point them out in a lineup, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know who LeBron James is, you know who Trae Young is, you know who Donovan Mitchell is, because you see them on the court every single day or every other day during basketball season, so it's easy. Football, it's a 52-man roster. And really, outside of the quarterback, the wide receiver, and some other big name players, you don't really know who these guys are. There's no possible way. They have helmets on, so you can't really make them out. And, there's only a small percentage of them that the media really, really focuses on kind of diving deep in their stories. So it's interesting, and it's always important, I think, to get kind of those stories from the people that maybe aren't the biggest names, because sometimes they have the most fascinating stories. It's just that, they don't have the big contracts. And I think, sometimes we get caught up in the fact that they don't have the big contract, they're not important. It's not the case. It's just that, sometimes you don't get the big contract, you don't have the best agent, you don't come from the biggest program, and the chips fall where they may, but the story behind each and every person, I'm a firm believer that, as cliche as it sounds, everybody has a story to tell. And I feel like everyone's story deserves to be heard. And I think that as journalists, as journalists, it's our responsibility to tell those stories. And I think what has kind of upset me a little bit is that now in this age where it's all about hot takes and it's all about going viral, I think a lot of journalists have kind of deterred from that fundamental of telling stories of people and focusing more on just, the sensationalized, polarizing aspect, rather than really getting into the meat and the foundation of who these people are. So
yeah, and that was what my question was going to be, and you hit it right in the head. Is, as a journalist, how do you navigate the truth, and how do you navigate? Are there some topics that come across your table that are those type of topics that are trying to tear someone down, or at the end of the day, they're clickbait that you decide to navigate around a certain way?
Absolutely. Like, I won't talk about people's personal. I don't care who's dating who.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about who got arrested for what. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm not TMZ. I don't really, when it comes to also other things that go on in the league, whether it's, criminal cases or other types of cases, if I don't have all the facts, I'm not talking about it. I'm not going to, make assessments. I'm not going to make all these types of just predictions on things like that. I'm just not going to do it. If it's not in black and white, meaning it is on a stat line and I can see it, if it does not happen on the court, and if it does not happen off the court in a sense where it uplifts, the person that we're talking about, I have no interest in touching it. I don't want to talk about things that aren't basketball, football, sport related, meaning now it's easy. Now, that's not to say you can't critique somebody within their job, right? So if LeBron has a bad game, we can go in on LeBron as long as it's in the realms of basketball. But
Right.
when we start venturing out and saying, oh, he had a bad game because he's partying with this people, does he care about? I'm not doing that, because at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with what just happened in that game, what just happened on that court. Now, we also want to talk about LeBron in the space of what he does in his personal life, and it's positive. or we're doing an in-depth profile and we're really diving into the mindset and the psyche of LeBron, let's do that. But all the gossip that sometimes I feel like infiltrates these journalistic institutions, I have no interest in doing any of that.
Right. And that's the thing is you hit it right on the head in the sense that gossip is kind of the new normal of news, right? When we are all sitting around on our couches for 2020 and we had this tool in our hands, I mean, everything was gossip, right? The way that they shared Kobe Bryant's passing, gossip is all extremely invasive in how a lot of reporters go about it. And I feel like it's really sad because you're starting to see sports drift away from the bigger picture of the athlete and more to what exactly did they do wrong in their life. And then they go on, and that affects not only how we see them, how reporters see them, it also goes down to how teammates see them, how front office sees them, because all that stuff, you can't just turn your ears off to the media. It's impossible. You have to understand by the words that you say affect how the person's career and the path of their career goes. Deion Sanders was talking the other day. I was watching a video, and he was saying when he got traded or he entered the locker room with the 49ers, either the 49ers or your Cowboys. And he was like, they held a team meeting the moment it was the first day on camp. And he was like, they had a team meeting about how to be a teammate and how to do this and how to do that. And it was like, I was confused because like I am a great teammate, but the media put down that I'm prime time, I'm this, I'm that. And so they thought that they needed to hold an entire team meeting, an organization meeting dedicated to making sure that he doesn't mess up the flow of the team. And that was completely from the truth, right? But because of this persona that was put on magazines and TV and every night on Monday night, the team and people who met him had already a perception of him that wasn't the truth. And I feel like that's a lot. The media has so much power, and I feel like we're missing the point now because not a lot of reporters have your mindset.
I mean, not only that aspect, and that's a very just bare minimum, that's an easy kind of way to maneuver because it's a quick, when you're around your teammates, it's real quick to see, oh, he's not that guy. But going to the Kobe Bryant thing, I mean, that was a family that was affected.
Yep.
The world found out before, the family was able to come to terms with what just happened. This wasn't, just some random person. This was a father. This was a husband. And then all these other names get thrown into the mix. Now, Rick Fox's family is nervous. Like, oh my God, was he on the, right. It's just the desire to be first in things that you don't need to be first in. I feel like there has been a line that has been blurred. Yes, you want to be first in the first trade news, right? You want to be first in the first rumor. And listen, NBA rumors, it's happened to me. They don't always manifest. I remember when I was working with the Miami Heat, there was a rumor circulating, and it was very close to being a done deal that Giannis was going to come to Miami. He was 1 foot out the door, almost 2 feet out the door of Milwaukee. I tweeted out that, Giannis was in talks with the Miami Heat, and if all things went according to plan, he was prepared to sign a long-term deal. Drew Holiday decided last minute, I'm going to Milwaukee, and it changed the whole game, and Giannis ended up staying. And people on social media to this day will not let me forget that I said that Giannis was coming to Miami. It didn't happen. That happens. Rumors don't always manifest, and
right.
That's okay. Nobody, nobody's harmed by that. Fans may let you hear it for the rest of your life. They may be pissed off, but nobody is genuinely harmed by a rumor like that. There are rumors that are detrimental to families, to brands, to individuals, and I feel like there has been lines blurred in terms of taking things that are not detrimental and things that are and combining them into one pot. And that's just not okay. And it's just not the case because there are levels to it. And the levels have to kind of be restacked and the hierarchy needs to be reevaluated. And I feel like some people need to go ahead and respect that some things just do not need to be talked about on air or publicly in general.
100% agree. And I do have a question in the sense that as a woman sports reporter, right, it's a woman, and that's a big deal because you're talking sports to men. And a lot of the pushback I received as an athlete was by men who can't even make a layup, right? And you hear the common conversations in the comments through social media, and it's hard not to. Whenever you see like a great woman make a historical moment, you go to the comments and you see, the terrible feedback that you get from that group. As a woman, talks a little about the pushback, even when you make certain tweets like that, right? That you thought were true, that you thought were going to happen. That how much do you think that people question your intelligence, your accuracy, and even your ability to do your job?
Oh, 100%. And it's hilarious to me because I've seen men be wrong about so many things, whether it's, they've had bad takes or whether it's reporting a rumor that just is totally inaccurate and does not come true. It's almost they get this pass because their DNA says they're male, right? And it's a lot of people have this misogynistic mindset that because you're a man, you're automatically a professional in sports, whether it's playing, whether it's knowledge, you automatically get that pass because you are a male. But they don't realize, first of all, a lot of these men reporting sports have never played professional sports, didn't even play college sports, didn't even make varsity, but they are given this pass because they're men. Whereas women, we're told go to the kitchen or you're a woman. There's no place for women in sports. And there are women that I know, myself included, that if you put them toe to toe with a man debating sports, they would run circles around them backwards. But because you're a woman, you're not given that same privilege and that same just confidence in your job and in your knowledge because simply of the fact that you're a woman. And people there's still a huge part of sports that has not been able to wrap their mind around the fact that in the year 2021, women have a place in sports media. Not only do they have a place, but they're really good at their jobs and they're extremely knowledgeable in the field as well. There are just some people, for some whatever reason, cannot wrap their head around that concept. So it's gotten better than it was, I want to say 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when people like Doris Burke and Robin Roberts were coming up. It's not perfect. It still has a long way to go. So it's made some strides. And I think that as more women come up in this field and as more opportunities are carved for women and as more women who are currently in the field kind of create a path for women to come after and the population continues to grow, you'll have no choice but to respect women in the field. But I don't know if it will ever 100% just because there are so many dinosaurs and misogynistic mindsets that watch football and basketball, baseball, any sport you want to think of. I don't know if it'll ever 100% be just not there. I think it will always be there to some capacity.
Right. And it makes me want to wish that I can call up God and be like, hey, God, make sure every single man that enters this earth has a daughter. And then let's see how that all starts to change their mentality. And the daughter has to be first. And we start to see girl dad evolving overnight. I was raised by a girl dad and he's the biggest feminist I know. Do you know what I mean? But if that was the thing that changed everything, then I will start to see mentalities change. Talk to us a little bit about the women who have kind of helped you navigate this and even throughout your career, some great names and people you can kind of shout out.
So there are people that I haven't even met that I've kind of just molded my career out after. I'm a big fan of Erin Andrews. I took a lot of my interviewing style from her. Growing up watching her, I think she has a great ability to kind of break down the athlete that she's talking to and make them forget they're in an interview space. So I've completely taken that and flipped it and made it my own for my interviewing style. I think Doris Burke kind of helped formulate my analytical minds because I think she's a genius when it comes to basketball, sports in general. She just has such a great mindset, great take. So I've gotten that from her. I've taken, her dedication to really learning the ins and outs of the game. Robin Roberts is somebody that I'm a big fan of. I think she's just a journalistic gem. I've really taken bits and pieces of that from her. A good friend of mine, Joy Taylor, she has her unapologetic just attitude that I've really adapted. And it makes me, growing up, it was somebody that I really looked up to. And it's not like we're a big age difference, but she's been in the field a lot longer than I have, just killing it in radio and on television. And she really kind of made me feel like it was okay to be feisty, to clap back, and to be sexy and to be smart. Joy's beautiful and she doesn't hide the fact that, look, I'm a young woman, I'm hot, but I also can talk circles around you when it comes to football and basketball. So if you want to go, we can go. And I think having women like that, for such a long time, women had to be in this box to be a reporter, right? You had to be buttoned up. You had to not be too controversial. You had to be not too opinionated because then it would piss off the analysts that are on the desk with you. You had to kind of almost not dumb down, but almost had to subdue who you were as a woman. And for me, one of the things that I'm really conscious of, because I know that people are watching, especially young women, is I'm very much, this is who I am. I'm not, from Beverly Hills. I'm not from the Midwest, from a little farm. I am from New York. I wear hoop earrings. I have acrylic nails. I have an accent. I don't dress, buttoned up. Some days you may even see, one day you may even see me with Tim's on a broadcast. Like, that's just who I am. So I feel like women need to see themselves in so many different arenas. There are people who can relate to Erin Andrews and everything that she is. There are people who see me, they're from an inner city. They're like, okay, dope. She's from where I'm from and she's doing what I want. That means I can do it too. And I think we need so many different examples of what a successful broadcaster in this field can look like, so that women don't feel like they have to be one thing in order to succeed. And I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about the time that we are right now. We're starting to see more different than more of the same.
Yeah. And I also think one of the biggest things within that is the ability to uplift one another as women. And we had a situation this year when we talk about Maria Taylor and Rachel Nichols, where we look at kind of how that played out and the idea of what's more important in your success, or, uplifting the culture. And for me, as a woman and a woman of color, I was like, okay, I'm seeing this on 7 different lenses. I'm seeing it as a woman lens. I'm seeing it as a Black woman lens. I'm seeing it as on this and on that. And for me, it was kind of one of those things that you see it play out and people can understand why there was so much aggression and frustration behind it from women, especially Black women.
Yeah.
And it's because one, she's more than qualified for her position, but also because, man, we're supposed to be here uplifting one another and make sure we can try to take all this stuff over. And we're not all on the same page with that.
Yeah. Look, the field is competitive. And I think because women are still a minority in this field, there aren't many positions available for women.
Yep.
So I would be lying if I said everyone is always kumbaya and it's always, a ponderosa, and everyone, loves being around each other and we're all going to uplift each other and we're all going to be happy and it's going to be rainbows, and it's not. A lot of the times people will pretend to put on that front, but behind the scenes, it's not really like that. So yes, you're still going to deal with that not only from white women, but from women, that are supposed to be your allies, because again, it's that competitive nature. Like, hey, I've worked really hard to get here. I want to be here too. And there's only 5 spots, but there's 8 of us. So, we can't all be friends. So yeah, that's the unfortunate part, but it's also about finding people who aren't moving in that space, that are genuine, are, about the empowerment and the advancement rather of women. Like, for example, I'm a firm believer, and this is why, I don't have that mindset, and it could be cliche or whatever. I'm a firm believer that what God has in store for me cannot be taken from me. So me helping X, Y, and Z is not going to take away my blessing. It's just not. Some people don't have that mindset. They may say that they do, but they really don't. So I would say to women, coming up and trying to maneuver through this field, is have the mindset that, like, look, you helping someone, when you get to the position, obviously when you're still climbing the ranks, you're not in the position to help other people yet. But when you get to a position where you feel, I think I can go ahead and help some people, don't feel like it's going to take from you. Anything that is for you is for you. Anything that is meant to be yours is yours. Nothing you do is going to deter from that. And just always remember, not everybody is your friend, but always try to be the better person. Don't let other people, my mom always has this saying, she's been telling me since I was a kid, don't let other people define who you are. So just because there's a lot of negativity and a lot of cattiness, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of whatever it is around you, don't let that infiltrate your spirit and how you maneuver with people. Because I'm a firm believer that if you put good into the world, good will always come back to you. So always keep that mindset and don't let anything else deter you from that. Like Maria took the high road. Shout out to Maria Taylor. She took the high road. And now look, her blessing is then some, because now she's on NBC, Sunday Night Football, one of the biggest, if not the biggest platform in sports. So there you go.
Yeah. And my biggest thing is that what people don't realize, and if you even can't wrap your head around what's for you will be for you, when you bring people along with you, I promise you, like you said, it comes back around. Mm-hmm. And when you put more people on, and that's the one thing I've learned, it might be the Suggs way, is the more people we put on, the better it is, not just for us, but like those people achieve, then they come back and be like, hey, let's bring you with, right? Here's a section that we can go into. You haven't done this before. Let's go over here. I'm about to start a business. You want to partner in? That stuff is like a big thing. And it's like, it helps you sleep at night, right? But it's also the good human way of living your life, because you don't have that insecurity within you. Like, God, I don't know if I want to give them the opportunities. What if it comes around to me? Man, screw that. What's for you will come for you. So
yeah. And it's such a selfish way of thinking, to think that you were put on this earth to just benefit yourself, right? It's such a selfish, just one-dimensional way of thinking, to just think that everything that you have been given is only meant to benefit you and your inner circle. And all of us are living on borrowed time. You know what I mean? Life is a gift, and it's a gift that's not forever. And I think it's our responsibility as people who inhabit a space on this planet to not only go after our dreams and the things that we want to do and the things that we are, passionate about and things like that, but to also leave a footprint and to leave a path that's bigger than us. So even if it's the one person, even if, you created something that gives one person the opportunity to use their platform or to speak about things that they're passionate about when you're no longer here, you made the world a better place. And people who don't have that mindset really bother me, because it's just such a selfish, singular, one-dimensional way of thinking. And at the end of the day, it's not what I believe the overall goal of humanity is. It's to make each generation have it a little bit easier than we had it. And if you're not doing your part, you're really missing out, and you're really just kind of dismissing what the gift of life really is all about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's extremely lonely to live your life that way.
That too.
That's a big piece of it. Yeah, but I loved, and that was one of my biggest things when all of this was unfolding. I was just trying to explain to Shane, because he couldn't understand. Like, he obviously felt some type of way, but he couldn't understand. He was like, why? Like, I was like, man, it's bigger than just black and white. It's bigger than, I said, it's the fact that Maria is rising, and this is so good for women in general. And it's like, when you plant seeds places, it grows and you get shade. And for me, that was what I felt like was missing from all of it, is encouraging and uplifting another woman, but also a younger woman that you honestly paved the way for as well. And so whatever, it worked out how it worked out.
Yeah, that's right.
But so let's talk Sports Illustrated. How did you get connected with them? And then how did, because you're a co-creator of Laces Out. How did Laces Out come?
So it's funny. So Laces Out, Sports Illustrated, there was, when Clubhouse was popping, when everyone was bored in the pandemic and Clubhouse was a thing, and it was still invite only, so it was the bougie Clubhouse. There was a mixer that would happen every Monday for people in media, various parts of whether you were a writer, you were on camera, producer, whatever. So I was still on contract with iHeart, and I just, was thinking about like, what's next? I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in radio, and radio had drastically changed during the pandemic. And I really wanted to get back into creating and being in front of the camera and things like that. So I happened to fall into this room and met my producer that ended up becoming my producer in there. And he was like, look, Sports Illustrated is looking for people, da, da, da. So I connected with him. And in the beginning, a lot of people don't know this, when I was doing the videos on Sports Illustrated that you guys would see on Twitter, like back in January, that was all about like trending things in sports, I was doing those for free. It was really just a way for me to kind of expand my platform and expand, my notoriety to people who have never heard of me. And Sports Illustrated is a huge platform. So I was like, okay, I'm still working at iHeart, but I kind of want to start planting seeds for the next thing.
Right.
Let me go ahead and do this. So I was doing those videos for like free, and it was a lot of them, and they were getting great feedback, and they started to like, okay, we're going to do more videos. And then the opportunity came for me to do a week's worth with them fully paid because somebody was on PTO. So I ended up in that week doing a bunch of videos. I got to interview Drew Brees, got paid, and now they saw what I brought to the table in so many different arenas, not just on camera solo, but interviewing skill set, things like that. So I made the decision. I told Dakota, who's one of my producers, I said, look, I'm not coming back unless this is on a full-time basis. Like, I gave you a month's worth of free work. It's done exceptionally well. Now you have to pay me.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of back and forth. Laces Out I technically wasn't even a full-time employee yet. That was a brainchild that we came up with, just figuring out a way for me to finagle my way into Sports Illustrated. Laces Out did exceptionally well. The NBA became an official sponsor of it, which is the biggest sponsorship I think Sports Illustrated has ever had. And then when I got a call, this is how things happen. I got a call from the Dallas Cowboys for a opportunity to work for them as a team reporter.
Nice.
I called Sports Illustrated. I think I had filmed like episode 6 of the show. I said, look, I'm going to finish filming the show. We have 8 episodes to go, but I have an offer on the table from Dallas. I think I'm going to take it. They're making a full-time commitment to me. And within, I think, 24 hours, maybe 48, SI called me and said, we have a counter. This is our counter. And this is what it was. And the counter was something I couldn't pass up. And here we are. So I tell people all the time, sometimes the path to that job that you want is not as clear cut as you may think. And you got to be able to get creative in the way that you try to get into something, but it's not always a straight shot.
Yeah. Well, I think it's perfect for you in general, because if anybody knows you, knows that you're bigger than just, your beauty and your intelligence and how you analyze it, but also just like your vibe and your energy. And you can kind of really see it in that sort of way. And it throws me back. And I love this type of TV where we kind of go back to cribs and like entering people's spaces and just having them at their most comfortable selves. That's what I really love about it. And I think you're perfect for it because that's your vibe, right? You make people comfortable around you.
Yeah, and that's funny you say cribs, because that was really when we drew it up. I was like, I want this to be a combination of MTV Cribs, because I think people really loved entering the spaces of their favorite athletes and seeing, okay, this is where they eat dinner, this is where they chill, this is seeing that. But then also I wanted to bring in obviously the journalistic aspect of it, which is where we sit down and we actually talk and we have conversation, and the fun, of sneaker culture and sneaker shopping and things like that, and seeing the heat that these athletes have access to that you can't get, and maybe frustrates you that you can't get. But it's supposed, there's a space for sports to be heavy, right? And at SI, I'm going to be doing stuff that's a little bit more heavy, a little bit more journalistic, a little bit more less fun, less niche, and more serious journalism. But then also there's a space, at the end of the day, we're not curing cancer, we're not solving the global warming crisis, we're not in politics. Sports are fun. And I feel like we've gotten away from that a little bit. And for me, I want to be able to create content that not only is serious and not only shines a light on serious issues and serious topics, but that's fun, that people watch and they're like, that was fun. That 30 minutes that I watched this video, that was a fun part of my day. Like that was fun to watch. I don't want them walking away from it and being like, wow, that was heavy. Like that was deep. It doesn't always have to be deep. It can be fun. It can be engaging. It can be silly. It can be niche. It can be all those things and still be sports. There's so many different ways to create content in this field, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you completely. And you have that personality that you can add both and both. That's probably the New York way of you. Hustle and bustle. Talk to me a little bit. Do you get to still cover your Knicks? Do you get to still be involved with that? Because y'all have a big year coming up.
We do. Listen, everyone who knows me knows I'm a huge Knicks fan. Like die hard. I do set to still cover my Knicks, and the cool thing about SI is I can create content that is geared just towards that fan demographic if I want to. It's a crazy fan base for sure, and they're not afraid to try to recruit anyone and anyone who they think either is from New York or would be a good fit in New York. I've seen campaigns for Dame. I've seen campaigns for people who are still under contract. I've just seen campaigns for so many people like come to New York. They think everyone wants to play in New York, but it's fun to be able to see New York relevant again to outside of just Knicks fans. I think overall, love them or hate them, the Knicks make basketball more fun. It's a better league when the New York Knicks are relevant. And I know a lot of people, love to bash us and love to talk about us. But if you notice last season, as much coverage as those Brooklyn Nets were getting, the Knicks were right there with them. So as much as people like to talk smack, the league is better when the Knicks are here. So, and we are here. So it's going to be a fun season for sure.
And you guys got your hometown guy back.
Kemba, shout out to Kemba. Very excited. The Bronx native. We got Evan. Julius is back. D Rose is back. Quick is back. RJ is back. I mean, the whole gang is back together with some new pieces. And I think that this team is going to surprise a lot of people. And I think, even if it's not a championship team, which I don't think it is. With the Knicks, we have a Christmas game day for work. We would. It just wouldn't be against the Hawks. I really feel like the Knicks are primetime television again, and I think that matchup just showcased. I think that series actually had some of the highest viewership of the NBA playoffs. I mean, that just goes to show. And granted, the Knicks only won one game, but you wouldn't know it by the way that Garden was rocking and how it was sold out every single game. I'm just excited that even if this is not a championship team, which it's not, it's just the trajectory of the Knicks that they're getting better and that they're not going backwards. They're continually going forward. And this is a team that's going to be relevant for a while. The Knicks are back and it feels good. I'm excited.
Absolutely, girl.
I think Chris here is a Hawks fan. I'm not sure.
From Atlanta.
Okay, that explains it. You're a Hawks fan. That's cool. I respect it. Well, I'll see you Christmas Day, Chris.
No, perfect. But Ash, thank you so much for joining us today. I think everyone loved having you on. I love your energy and I just enjoy you so much. I really appreciate you joining us.
Likewise.
Episode, girl.
Thank you.
And we'll hopefully have you on soon enough. But Ashley, how can people watch Laces Out before we get you out of here?
So you guys can watch Laces Out on Sports Illustrated's YouTube channel. Also, if you guys follow me on social at Ash Nicole Moss, Instagram and Twitter, I'm always posting clips and links that will directly take you to full episodes. So we have a new episode dropping this Friday. I'm very excited about it. The trailer drops tomorrow. It's a feature that's very near and dear to my heart. It represents New York culture to the fullest. So it's definitely going to be a fun one for sure.
All right. Well, thanks, Ash, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, girl. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us on the Huddle this Wednesday. We'll see you guys on Friday for Faith Family Focus, of course. But once again, thank you. We start every Friday next week at 10:04 a.m. Eastern. Thank you again to Amazon Fire, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Apple TV, and most importantly, our key platform, E360 TV out of Phoenix, Arizona. Once again, this is the Huddle presented by Faith Family Focus. Our goal is to enter the huddle and leave knowing we've grown within these 60 minutes. Our stories are our power, and every Friday we hope to share some more amazing guests with you in our journeys. We'll see you guys on Friday, September 24th. And of course, like always, let go and let God.